Hi, welcome to the video. So today we're kind of talk from the ground up how chord and arpeggio formulas are used and constructed, so you kind of understand them, and then you can actually use those and apply them to create your own chord fingerings or your own arpeggio fingerings. So you don't have to just use the ones you've already learned, but you can use the formulas to create your own. And I think that's an important thing to do, especially when you get into less commonly used chords. You might forget some of the ones you don't use all the time. But if you understand the formula, you can always, on the fly, if you know the notes on the neck, quickly figure out a fingering for that. Now, some good things that gives you a good foundation would be to know the notes on the neck, at least to where you can figure them out, even if you're not that quick with them. So if you don't know that, check out that video, the Emmy link in the corner, which shows you different ways to figure out the notes on the neck. Understanding intervals, which is basically distance between two notes, such as a fifth, a third, and stuff like that, will also help you. I'm going to explain that, though, because without that, it's kind of hard to understand the formulas at all. But if you're not sure after hearing my explanation, I did a whole video on intervals. Up in the corner, I'll link that too, so you can watch that for more depth. And it also has a scale exercise using thirds in that. All of the formulas we're going to talk about will be written on this page, plus some tips and a major scale. So you can download that for free on my Patreon page. The link is in the description. You don't have to remember or anything like that. So basically, if you see a formula that says a C major 7 chord is 1, 3, 5, 7, what's that mean? Basically, all those numbers attached to chords, you know, A minor 9, C 13, they refer to, if you understand a major scale, you can figure out what all of them are. So I'm going to go and play, in case you don't know a major scale, I'm just play one octave, 8, 10, 12, 8, 10, 12, 9, 10, which is in C, so it's a C major. Notes are just C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. Basically, it's the white keys on piano. So knowing the notes is beneficial, but in formulas, they always use numbers, and the reason being, then I can play it off any note in any key, and the same formula will apply. If I just memorize that C, E, and G are a C major, but then I move somewhere else, well then how do I know what the notes for a G major are? But if I know the numbers, let's say if I do, again, the C major is just 1, 3, 5, and that's C, E, G. Now if I move to A, I can plug in that same 1, 3, 5 arpeggio shape, because arpeggio is just playing the notes one at a time instead of strumming them as a chord. And that will give me the notes of either the arpeggio or the chord. So what are these notes? A, I'm skipping over B, C sharp would be a 3, D, and E would be the fifth. So 1, A, C sharp, E. So using the numbers, I can figure out any chord on any root just by plugging in the same arpeggio shape or the same numbers. Now, these don't have to be played in a row, though. When I say a C major 7 chord, for example, you might play a C major 7 chord like this, but what are the order of these notes? I'm actually playing the root, and then I'm skipping up to a 7th, and then I'm playing the 3rd, and then playing the 5th. So it's not in order necessarily. While a different chord like this C major, 1, 3, 1, 3, 5, 1, 3, C, E, G, C, E. So the first 3 notes are in order. So don't get thrown off. You can mix around the order however you want. Now, especially on bigger chords, sometimes you'll be leaving some notes out on it just to make it feasible to play on the chord. While in arpeggios, you can kind of keep all the notes in. So this C major 7 just has 4 different notes. I'm playing them each once. But if I play a C major 7 arpeggio, I might go C, E, G, B. That's all 4 notes, but then go C, E, G, B, C. Then I might take that even in a different fingering on the way back down or something. Because with arpeggio, you can play more than one note on a string, so that gives you more options than on a chord. A lot of times I might leave a note off in one octave just to, like for example, if I'm doing this chord, because if I put the 3 in, I'd lose the root. if I put the 3 on the 5th string, I'd lose the 5th. So I don't put the 3 until the 2nd octave. Okay, hopefully you're not lost already, but even if you are, it's going to make more sense as I go through this. So basically, again, if you know that major scale, you can move it anywhere you want. Now, that gives you the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 on. But what about when you hear like a flat 3rd or a flat 5 or a, sharp 11 or something like that? Basically, if you flat, it just lowers note 1. Sharp, you raise 1. So if I have my, again, root and 5th, if a chord calls for a flat 5, then that's just lowered down 1 from my 5. If it calls for a sharp 5, it just takes a 5th and raises up 1. Now I wouldn't have both the 5 and that, then basically I'm replacing the 5 with the flat or sharp version of it. If it says like major 7, flat 5. Okay, so flatting or sharping it, you can figure out all those just by knowing what the normal natural notes are. Basically the flat notes, if I'm in the key of C, are the same thing as the black keys on the piano. It gives you all the sharps and flats versus the natural notes, which would be the white keys. Okay, and those will be used in a lot of chords because, for example, a C minor would have a flat 3rd, because that's actually what makes a chord or arpeggio or scale major or minor, is that 3rd. So that's the important one to look for, is does it have the major 3rd or the minor 3rd, or 3rd and flat 3rd, whichever way you want to think about it. Sometimes people will call interval by major or minor, sometimes they'll just say 3rd or flat 3rd. Okay, now if you're going on your show all the way up to 13th on major, minor, and dominant chords or arpeggios, basically you can refer to this. I wrote 2 octaves of a C major scale, and if you skip every other note and basically do stacked thirds, then you get 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11, 13, which would be a C major 13 arpeggio. It also are the notes in a C major 13 chord. Now this gets down to, well, there's 7 different notes in that. The reason I don't go above 13, you don't get like 15, is because that's a C note again. So you've played every note in the key already when you play up to 13. Now, practicality, you aren't going to be able to play 7 different notes on a guitar that only has 6 strings. Even if you had 7 strings, you wouldn't want to necessarily play it, because that's basically playing the entire scale at once. So now you have to kind of look at what's important in the chord or arpeggio. Now with arpeggios, you can play all the notes because, again, you can play multiple notes on a string. But that doesn't mean you always want to. Sometimes you still might want to leave some of the notes off. But on a chord, you'll have to leave some of them off. So for example, if I had a C13 chord, so now if it says C13, that would be a dominant one. The difference between a dominant and a major chord is the major chord has a major 7th. The dominant has a flat 7. That's the only difference. They both work off your major triad. So if I'm doing a C major 7 arpeggio, 1, 3, 5, 7. If I'm doing a C7 arpeggio, 1, 3, 5, flat 7. Okay. So therefore the 7 on any quarter that goes above a 7, or 7, 9, 11, 13, it's important to keep in because it differentiates between dominant and major 7. Now we already talked about the 3rd being important because that gives you the whether the chord itself is major or minor. Now if it's a 13th chord, of course the 13 is important too. So the way I might play a C13 arpeggio would be like this. This has the root, which sometimes you don't even need the root. If you have a bass player or someone hitting the root, you can create that through harmony. But if you're playing by yourself, you want the root then. Then this gives me my flat 7, my major 3rd, and my 13. So all the notes I need to create the sound of a C13 chord. I don't need the 5, I don't need the 9, I don't need the 11. So those can be left off. Just the root, the third to make it major or minor, the seventh to make it major or dominant, and whatever note is beyond that that's in the name. Now, if you have altered notes that are in the name too, again, any note that's named in the chord itself, like if it's a minor 7 flat 5, yeah, then you want that flat 5 then. Okay. Now, so that's kind of how you can simplify them down and make them useful. Because sometimes, otherwise, if you're looking at these formulas, it's like, well, I can't play that many notes. It's just not practical. So leave some of the ones that aren't necessary out. Now, having said that, let's look at some of the formulas. So basically, I wrote from C major triad up to C major 13, then one column, C minor triad up to C minor 13, and the C dominant from the triad up to 13. Now, the triad for a major and the dominant are the same. They're both just C. If I'm doing, again, all these in C major or C minor. But let's run through these. So basically, my basic triad for major and minor are, triad is just a 3-note chord or arpeggio. 1, 3, 5 for major, 1 flat 3, 5 for minor. Now, again, how this helps you is you can then find your own fingerings anywhere on the neck that you want if you can figure out what those notes are. And you can reverse this too, and you can say, okay, I know the C major chord, but I don't know any other fingerings of it. I don't know my chord formula is good, but I know that it has C, E, G, C, E, so I know what notes are in it. Well, from that you can say, okay, I can plug the 3 different notes, C, E, G, into my scale and count 1, 2, 3. So this E is a 3, 4, 5, and the G is a 5. So 1, 3, 5 is the formula for a major chord. You could plug in the same thing. As long as you know the notes of a chord, you can figure out the formula of the chord. So now all you have to do is keep stacking thirds up on it. So if I have the C major, then if I add the 7th, that becomes 1, 3, 5, 7. That's a C major 7. 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. That's a C major 9. So 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11. Again, I'm just going every other note through a scale. If you don't know it in the second octave, it's okay, because up here I kind of wrote details in the second octave. So 11 is the same if you go down an octave as the 4. The 9 is the same as the 2. So 2 and 9 are the same note. The 11 and 4 are the same note, and the 6 and 13 are the same note. So if you don't know the second octave of this scale, you can figure it out from just taking this and playing the notes you're not playing on the 1, 3, 5, 7, the 2, 4, and 6, and that's your 9, 11, and 13. So 9 is D, 11 is F, and 13 is 6. Then you just plug them into the second octave or wherever you want, because again, you don't have to put them in order when you're playing a chord. And that's what inversions are, is when you don't even put the root as the lowest note, but you maybe put the 3rd or the 5th as the lowest note. So, and that's perfectly okay. A lot of times you'll see it written as a slash chord where there's a line dividing, like C/E. It'd be a C chord with E in the bass instead of the C in the bass. Okay. Now if we go up to minor, you're going to see a lot of overlap on this. Basically, the difference between a major and minor chord is the flat 3rd. So now if you wanted to keep it in key, you could go to D minor or A minor. But right now, if we just, so you can compare them, do a C minor. Then it's 1, flat 3, 5. Now for the minor 7, you have a flat 7. So that flats, a flat 7, same as that. They both have the same 9, 11, and 13. If you're doing C minor 9, C minor 11, C minor 13. Sometimes if you might have a flat 13 or something like that, but it will say that then. Say like you might say like a C minor 11, flat 13 on that. Then dominant, I wrote those all on the end right here, just like identical to the C major ones, except now it's 1, 3, 5, flat 7, just like, so the flat 7's just like the one from your minor 7 chord. And then it will just continue up 9, 11, 13, the same ones you did on the major. So still a D, F, and A. Just each one will have a flat 7 in it also. Okay, so all those are written out there if you need them as reference. I wrote the numbers underneath, numbers and the letters under them, so you can kind of compare them. But as you can see, there's a lot of overlap between them. And again, you can apply, how you can, this can help you is apply it to your arpeggios, find different ways to finger the chords, really get, and even if you go into fingerings, the formulas I didn't show here, like let's say you're doing the diminished triad or augmented triad, as long as you can just Google and find the formula, augmented is just 1, 3, sharp 5. Diminished triad is just 1, it's a minor triad with a flat 5. Sometimes called a minor flat 5 too. I like using that name because it's just very obvious what it is then. Or augmented you could think of as a major sharp 5. Again, it's very obvious then what the formula is. So as you learn other formulas, from using that scale, you should be able to figure out what the notes are for any chord formula you see, and the chord and arpeggio formulas are the same. So anyways, if you have questions, please leave them in the comment section, but also please like and subscribe, or just leave comments, even if it's just an emoji like a thumbs up in the comment section. This helps get me more views and more people see my videos. And download this. It has a lot of the things I talked about written out on it. And I'll leave it at that for this time. Thanks for watching.